The application season officially kicks off at most MBA programs when they release their essay questions, typically in May or June. Does that mean you can wait until the spring to start thinking about your applications? Absolutely not. In fact, there's a lot of work to be done in the pre-application stage to ensure that you're prepared to hit the ground running when applications open up. In this excerpt from onTrack by mbaMission, our comprehensive MBA admissions course, I discuss what you should be doing between January and April to set yourself up to create your strongest possible applications. Take a look. Before I dive into every aspect of the MBA application process, and I promise I will, I want to start by talking to you about your application timeline. In this lesson, I'm going to discuss what should happen before your application year. You might already be past this pre-stage, and if so, that's great. This video is still worth your time though, because I'll go over a few things you really must get done before you're truly ready to tackle your applications. At the end of this video, we'll give you a checklist to help you identify whether you have any gaps in your profile, and then plan to fill them in over the coming months or years, depending on how much time you have until your deadlines. For most MBA programs, the application season begins when they release their essay questions in May or June. That's the starting gun, so to speak. For now, I'll set aside a discussion of how the application season plays out from there. Here, my goal is to first ensure that you have a plan in place so that you'll be as prepared as possible when May of your application year rolls around, if not earlier. Take a look at the graphic on your screen, the uber-prepared applicant. Notice that all this applicant is doing during the application season is applying. This is because during the pre-stage, they executed a plan to complete every possible task that could be addressed beforehand, including taking their admissions exam, selecting their target schools, identifying their recommenders, revising their resume, and so on. I'll address each of these pre-stage tasks in a minute. But first, I want to compare this uber-prepared applicant with a more typical applicant, one who's still working on many aspects of their profile at the same time they're applying. You can easily see through this graphic that the more typical applicant's process is far more chaotic and less focused than that of the uber-prepared applicant. If this is you, though, don't panic. I've seen many typical applicants have lots of success. Later in this module, I'll go through what you should do if you're in this situation. But now, let's talk about what you need to do before May of your application year if you want to be that uber-prepared applicant. First, and this should come as no surprise to you, most business school applicants need to take a standardized admissions test, either the GMAT Focus, GRE, or possibly the EA. Typically, studying for and taking one of these tests takes about 3 months, but some can take 6 months or more. Of course, this all varies by applicant. This means you're probably starting to study in January of your application year at the latest, so you can be done by April. But the uber-prepared applicant would take their test far earlier. The scores for these tests have a shelf life of 5 years. That gives you plenty of time to study for the test, take it, and then even retake it long before you start focusing on the other areas of your profile. Another step you might want or need to take ahead of your application year is pursuing additional coursework. If you're a liberal arts major who took no undergrad quant courses, like me, or if you struggled in quant courses in college or on the quant side of the GMAT or GRE, you might want to take the HBS Core or some additional quant classes for credit to signal your quantitative proficiency to the admissions committee. You should assume that a course will be a semester long, so you'll need to sequence this either before or after your study for and taking of your chosen admissions test. Give yourself at least 4 months to take a class before May of your application year, and maybe even a year if you haven't taken a standardized test yet, because you'll have to do both. If you're uncertain whether you fall into this category, don't worry. I cover all of this in our modules on your MBA stats coming up later. By taking these important steps, you'll have done your best to shore up your MBA stats ahead of your application year. Adcoms love when applicants show sincere interest in their programs. One way to do this is by visiting your target school well before your application year. This helps demonstrate your true intentionality in applying to that school. Most schools are open for visits from October through March, except for a few weeks at the end of December for holidays. You need to plan ahead to visit before your application year, because if you wait until April to make arrangements, you likely won't be able to visit until October, after your application is due. So start thinking now about when you'll visit your target schools. Also, do you have a plan to start networking with students and alumni to learn more about your chosen programs? Have you created logins with those schools to learn about their admissions outreach and programs? Again, you need to plan well ahead for this marathon. You just can't sprint it. What else can you do in advance? You can look into pursuing firm sponsorship. This is often a cumbersome process that can take months of planning with HR. So again, starting early is key. You might also work on updating and fine-tuning your resume so that you have one less task to complete during your application year. You can research and refine your career goals so you're prepared to write credible goal statements. You might start identifying potential recommenders and reconnect with them now so they'll be eager to write letters for you when the time comes. So now let's turn to the softer side of your profile, your community and personal endeavors. If you wait until May of your application year to start volunteering or pursuing personal endeavors, your efforts will likely look superficial to the AdCom. Quite literally, now is the time to identify a volunteer activity that you're passionate about. And you generally want a minimum of 6 months, but even better, a year of committed volunteer experience before you apply so that it comes across as meaningful to the AdCom. I discuss in more depth what meaningful volunteering is in our community and personal leadership module, but know that if you've not been regularly engaging in a community or volunteer activity, you need to start doing that as soon as possible to build that holistic profile. When it comes to volunteering, depth really matters. Similarly, if you have a personal goal or aspiration you've been wanting to achieve but haven't dedicated the necessary time to making that happen, now's the time to pursue that as well. For example, maybe you've always intended to get your photography published or to start a podcast. Well, there's no time like the present. Your passions very much count in the admissions process too. Although it's sometimes easier to find a leadership role in your community, you can nevertheless try to bolster your leadership profile at work over the coming year or years. While you might not be able to push for a big promotion, you should be able to find other opportunities to lead. Perhaps you head up a diversity committee or launch your firm's volunteer initiative, for example. Ask yourself how you could add to your professional profile ahead of your application year. Again, being able to show a committed track record of at least 1 year is important with any extracurricular endeavor. Another suggestion is to go to the brainstorming module of this course and start building your inventory of experiences so you have time to methodically record everything before you apply. All these steps take planning, consideration, and dedication. So you'll see a checklist appear in a moment. Which tasks have you completed? Which tasks do you need to schedule? What's your plan for the pre-stage? This is your first step in getting organized, in becoming that uber-prepared applicant. I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Later in our MBA application timeline module, I dig deeper into sample applicant timelines, discuss the differences between application rounds, and provide checklists to help you determine your application readiness. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. In onTrack, we have over 80 modules covering everything from your pre-application strategy and school selection to core application components like essays, recommendations, and interviews. We provide in-depth modules on more than 15 of the top business schools, share dozens of sample essays and resumes, each with detailed analysis and so much more. It all starts with your customized learning path. If you're ready to learn more, tap the link to our introductory questionnaire and receive your personalized plan. We'll see you in onTrack.